The massive space station called Harmony Prime floated in the darkness between two bright stars. The station was huge, bigger than any city on Earth. Ships from 12 different alien species were docked to its metal arms like insects on a giant flower. Inside the main meeting hall, representatives from across the galaxy sat in a perfect circle. Commander Jake Morrison adjusted his blue uniform and looked around the room. He had never seen so many different types of aliens in one place. Some looked like giant lizards with thick scales and sharp teeth. Others were made of what looked like living crystal that sparkled in the light. A few had tentacles instead of arms and floated in tanks of green water. Next to Jake sat Lieutenant Lisa Carter, the only other human in the room. Her hands were folded on the table, but Jake could see she was nervous. They were here to ask if Earth could join the Galactic Council. It was the most important meeting in human history. The leader of the meeting was a tall alien with 4 arms and purple skin. His name was Council Prime Zexthor, and he had been alive for over 300 years. He looked at the humans with eyes that seemed bored. "We are here today to discuss the application of the species called humans," Zexthor said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "They wish to join our council and become part of the galactic community." A huge alien that looked like a walking tank stood up. His name was War Chief Thokmar, and he led the Krillian Empire. The Krillians were known across the galaxy as the strongest fighters. Thokmar's voice was deep and angry. "These humans are babies," Thokmar said, pointing one massive finger at Jake and Lisa. "They only learned to travel between stars 50 years ago. My people have been flying through space for 5,000 years. Why should we let children sit at the table with adults?" Many aliens in the room made sounds of agreement. Jake felt his face get hot, but he stayed quiet. Admiral Susan Blake had told him to let her do the talking during the meeting. A crystal alien named Shardsinger Velthon stood up next. When she spoke, her voice sounded like music, but the words were not kind. "The humans fight wars with each other on their own planet. They use primitive weapons and destroy their own environment. How can we trust them with the knowledge of the galaxy?" An elephant-like alien called Elder Trunkwise Mordan raised his trunk to speak. "I have studied the human military reports. Their biggest ships are tiny. Their weapons are old-fashioned. If we let them join the council, how will they defend themselves? Other species might attack them and cause problems for all of us." Jake looked at Lisa. Her jaw was tight, and he could tell she wanted to say something, but they had orders to stay quiet. The aliens kept talking about humans like they were not even in the room. The Zephyrians were next to speak. Their representative, Tentacle Lord Vashka, floated in his water tank and waved his tentacles around. "Perhaps the humans could be useful as workers or servants. They seem good at building things. But full membership in the council? That seems too much for such a young species." For 2 hours, the aliens talked about all the reasons humans should not join the council. They said humans were too young, too weak, too violent, and too stupid. Some aliens suggested that Earth would be better off under the protection of an older species. Jake heard one alien whisper to another that human space had good planets for mining. Finally, Council Prime Zexthor looked at the humans. "Do you have anything to say before we vote?" Admiral Susan Blake stood up. She was a small woman with gray hair, but when she spoke, her voice filled the room. "Honored members of the council, we understand your concerns about humanity. We are indeed young compared to your great civilizations, but we believe we have something valuable to offer." War Chief Thokmar laughed, a sound like rocks falling down a mountain. "What could you possibly offer us, little human?" Admiral Blake smiled. "We would like to request permission to demonstrate our defensive capabilities. We believe a simple demonstration would answer many of your questions about human military technology." The aliens looked at each other and made various sounds of amusement. Shardsinger Velthon's crystal body sparkled as she laughed. "You wish to show us your primitive missiles and chemical rockets? Very well. We accept your request." Council Prime Zexthor nodded. "The demonstration will take place tomorrow at the proving grounds near the asteroid belt. You may use any of your weapons against one of our target ships. This should be interesting." The meeting ended and the aliens filed out of the room, still making jokes about human technology. Jake heard one alien say to another, "This will be over in minutes. Their little rockets will bounce off our shields like raindrops. When the room was empty except for the three humans, Jake finally spoke. Admiral, are you sure about this? These aliens have technology we can barely understand. Their ships are massive and their weapons can destroy planets. Admiral Blake looked at him with calm eyes. Jake, these aliens have been using the same types of weapons for thousands of years. Energy beams, plasma cannons, particle accelerators. They think they know everything about warfare, but they have never seen what humans can do when we put our minds to solving a problem. Lisa leaned forward. What exactly are we going to show them, Admiral? Tomorrow, Lieutenant, we are going to show them that sometimes the oldest ideas are the best ideas. We are going to show them that humans understand something they have forgotten about warfare. What's that? Jake asked. Admiral Blake's smile was cold and sharp. That the simplest weapons are often the most deadly. These aliens have been so busy making fancy energy weapons that they forgot about the power of throwing rocks. Tomorrow we are going to throw a very fast rock. That night, Jake could not sleep. Outside his window on the space station he could see the lights of alien ships. Some of them were as big as cities. Their weapons could turn Earth into space dust in minutes. But Admiral Blake seemed confident and Jake trusted her. He thought about his home on Earth, about his family who were waiting to hear if humanity would be accepted into the galaxy. He thought about all the human colonies that needed protection, and all the discoveries that could be made if they had access to alien technology. Tomorrow would change everything, one way or another. Jake just hoped the Admiral knew what she was doing. The proving grounds were located in the asteroid belt between the fourth and fifth planets of the Kepler system. Chunks of rock and ice floated in the darkness, some as small as houses, others as big as mountains. In the middle of this rocky field, a massive alien warship waited. The ship belonged to the Krillians, and it was called the Bone Crusher. Captain Korvex commanded the ship, and he was proud of it. The Bone Crusher was 3 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide. Its hull was made of living bioarmor that could heal itself when damaged. No weapon in the galaxy had ever put a permanent hole in a Krillian ship. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of Harmony Prime with dozens of alien representatives. Through the thick glass windows, he could see the Bone Crusher floating in space like a metal mountain. Next to it, the human ship looked like a toy. The USS Liberty was only 800 meters long. Captain Ryan Woods had volunteered his ship for the demonstration. Jake knew Ryan from the academy. He was a good captain, but his ship was small and simple compared to the alien vessels around them. War Chief Thokmar stood near the window, his massive arms crossed over his chest. "Look at that tiny human ship," he said to the other aliens. "It looks like it was built in someone's garage. How do they expect to damage the Bone Crusher with that little thing?" Shard Singer Velthon's crystal body sparkled as she examined the human ship through a viewing device. "I can detect their weapon systems. They appear to be using some type of magnetic acceleration device. How primitive. Do they plan to throw metal at us?" The elephant-like Borvian delegate, Elder Trunk Wise Morden, made a rumbling sound with his trunk. "Perhaps this is some kind of joke. Surely they don't believe kinetic weapons can penetrate modern armor." Jake felt his face get red, but he stayed quiet. Lieutenant Lisa Carter stood next to him, her hands clenched into fists. The aliens were treating this like entertainment, not understanding what they were about to see. On the USS Liberty, Captain Ryan Woods sat in his command chair. His weapons officer, Chief Lisa Martinez, was at her station running final checks on the railgun system. The weapon ran along the spine of the ship hidden inside the hull. From the outside, it looked like nothing special. "All systems ready, Captain," Martinez reported. "Railgun is charged and loaded with a standard tungsten rod. Target is locked." Woods opened a communication channel to the observation platform. "Harmony Prime, this is USS Liberty. We are ready to begin the demonstration. Council Prime, Zex Thor's," voice came back over the radio. "You may proceed, human vessel. Try not to embarrass yourselves too badly." More laughter came from the alien representatives. Tentacle Lord Vashka waved his tentacles in amusement. "This should be over quickly. Their little metal rod will bounce off the Bone Crusher's hull like a pebble." Captain Corvex's voice came over the communication system from the Krillian ship. USS Liberty, you may fire when ready. My bioarmor has never been penetrated by any weapon. Today will be no different. Woods looked at his weapons officer. Chief Martinez, you may fire when ready. Martinez's finger hovered over the firing button. The railgun was simple in concept but incredible in execution. Powerful electromagnets would accelerate a tungsten rod down the length of the gun barrel. The rod would exit the ship at 15% of the speed of light. Firing, Martinez said, and pressed the button. There was no flash of light, no dramatic energy beam, no sound in the vacuum of space. The electromagnetic coils activated in sequence, and the tungsten rod shot out of the USS Liberty like an invisible bullet. On the observation deck, the aliens watched their sensors, waiting to see the impact. Most of them expected to see a small flash when the rod hit the Krillian ship's shields. Instead, they saw something impossible. The tungsten rod hit the bone crusher and went straight through it. The 3-kilometer-long ship shuddered as the rod punched through the front hull, traveled the entire length of the vessel, and exited out the back. Where the rod passed, everything was destroyed. Metal vaporized. Equipment exploded. The bioarmor that was supposed to heal damage couldn't heal from something that no longer existed. A perfect circular hole, 10 meters wide, went completely through the Krillian dreadnought from front to back. Through the hole, Jake could see stars on the other side. The observation deck fell completely silent. Captain Corvex's voice came over the radio, but now it was full of panic instead of confidence. Emergency! All hands to damage control. We have a hull breach, multiple hull breaches. The bioarmor isn't responding. War Chief Thokmar pressed his face against the viewing window, his mouth hanging open. The strongest ship in the Krillian fleet, the ship that had never been damaged in 1,000 battles, now had a hole big enough to fly a shuttle through. Impossible, whispered Shardsinger Velthon. No kinetic weapon should have that much power. What did they do? Elder Trunkwise. Morden's trunk was trembling. The energy readings make no sense. There was no massive power buildup, no exotic matter consumption. How did they generate such destructive force? Jake looked around at the alien faces. For the first time since arriving at the station, he saw fear in their eyes. These species had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, but they had never seen anything like this. Dr. Patricia Hayes, Earth's chief scientist, stepped forward to address the stunned aliens. She was a calm woman with kind eyes, but her voice was steady and sure. The weapon you just witnessed is called a railgun, she explained. It uses electromagnetic fields to accelerate projectiles to extremely high velocities. The tungsten rod was traveling at approximately 45,000 kilometers per second when it hit your ship. Tentacle Lord Vashka's water tank bubbled as he spoke in a shaking voice. That is 15% of light speed. How is that possible with such a simple weapon? Dr. Hayes smiled. Sometimes the best solutions are the simplest ones. Your energy weapons are very sophisticated, but they require massive amounts of exotic fuel and complex targeting systems. Our railgun just uses electricity and magnetism to throw metal very, very fast. Council Prime Zexthor finally found his voice. What was the power setting of this weapon? Admiral Blake answered this time. That demonstration used approximately 12% of the USS Liberty's railgun capacity. We didn't want to completely destroy the target ship. The observation deck erupted in shocked voices as the aliens began to understand what they had just seen. The humans had casually demonstrated a weapon that could destroy any ship in the galaxy, and they had used it at low power like it was nothing special. Captain Corvex's voice came over the radio again. Harmony Prime, we need immediate assistance. Half my ship's systems are offline. The bioarmor cannot repair damage of this magnitude. Jake looked out at the crippled Krillian dreadnought and felt a mixture of pride and fear. Pride, because humanity had just proven they belonged in the galaxy. Fear, because he was beginning to understand how much this single demonstration was going to change everything. The bone crusher drifted through space like a wounded animal. Rescue ships from the Krillian fleet rushed to help their flagship, but the damage was beyond anything they had ever seen. The hole went completely through the ship, and everything in its path was gone. Not damaged, not broken, but completely vaporized. Captain Korvex's voice came over the emergency channels, filled with disbelief. Control, we need immediate evacuation of sections 12 through 37. The weapon created a vacuum tunnel through the entire ship. Our bio-armor cannot heal what is no longer there. On the observation deck of Harmony Prime, the alien representatives stared at the crippled warship in shocked silence. War Chief Thokmar, the proud leader of the Krillian military, looked like someone had hit him with a hammer. His greatest ship, the vessel that had never been defeated in battle, was floating helpless in space. This cannot be real, Thokmar whispered. The bio-armor has protected our ships for 3,000 years. It adapts to any weapon, learns from any attack. Nothing should be able to do this. Shardsinger Velthon turned her crystal body toward Dr. Patricia Hayes. Her musical voice was sharp with fear. Human scientist, explain this weapon again. How does it work? Dr. Hayes stepped forward, her calm voice carrying clearly through the observation deck. The railgun is based on a simple principle called electromagnetic induction. We create a powerful magnetic field between two rails. When we pass electric current through a metal projectile placed between the rails, the magnetic field accelerates the projectile at incredible speed. The Vexhi science curator Naltek, a being made of living light, flickered with confusion. But the energy requirements should be enormous. Our sensors detected no massive power buildup, no exotic matter consumption. How do you generate such destructive force efficiently? We don't generate force, Dr. Hayes explained patiently. We generate speed. The destructive power comes from kinetic energy. When something small moves very fast, it hits very hard. The tungsten rod weighed only 50 kilograms, but at 15% of light speed, it carried the energy equivalent of a small nuclear weapon. Elder Trunkwise Morden's trunk swayed nervously. You turned a piece of metal into a nuclear weapon just by making it move fast? Essentially, yes, Admiral Blake said, joining the conversation. And that was just one of our smaller railguns, operating at low power. We didn't want to completely destroy the demonstration target. The aliens began talking among themselves in dozens of different languages. Fear was spreading through the room like smoke. These species had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, confident in their advanced energy weapons and particle beams. Now they were seeing something that made all their technology seem outdated. Council Prime Zexthor raised his forearms for silence. Admiral Blake, what are the full capabilities of this weapon system? Admiral Blake's smile was cold and professional. The USS Liberty's railgun can operate at full power, achieving projectile speeds of 22% light speed. Our larger ships have more powerful systems. The orbital defense platforms around Earth can reach 25% light speed. Tentacle Lord Vashka's water tank bubbled violently. How many of these weapons does humanity possess? Every human military vessel carries at least one railgun system, Admiral Blake replied. Our home defense grid consists of over 200 orbital platforms, each equipped with multiple railgun batteries. We also have mobile battle stations, planetary defense installations, and experimental weapons that I'm not authorized to discuss. The observation deck erupted in frightened voices. The Zephyrians began calculating how much damage human weapons could cause to their home worlds. The Borvians were trying to understand how their massive fortress ships would fare against kinetic projectiles. The Vexhi were realizing that their energy shields, designed to deflect particle beams and plasma bolts, would be useless against solid metal traveling at light speed. War Chief Thokmar stepped closer to Admiral Blake. His voice was low and dangerous. Are you threatening the Galactic Council, human? Not at all, Admiral Blake replied calmly. We came here seeking peaceful membership in your organization, but you asked about our defensive capabilities, and we are simply being honest about what we can do to protect ourselves and our allies. Jake Morrison watched the alien reactions with growing amazement. These beings had treated humans like children who didn't belong at the grown-up table. Now they were looking at Admiral Blake like she was the most dangerous person in the room. Dr. Hayes continued her explanation, making the situation worse for the aliens with every word. Railgun technology has many applications beyond warfare. We use smaller versions for space construction, asteroid mining, and long-distance cargo delivery. The same principles that make our weapons so effective also make our industrial systems incredibly efficient. Science curator Nalthek flickered brighter with anxiety. You can mine asteroids from light years away? In theory, yes, Dr. Hayes nodded. A railgun projectile maintains its velocity over interstellar distances. With proper targeting, we could strike objects anywhere in a star system from the edge of that system. The implications hit the aliens like a physical blow. Humans could potentially attack targets from distances so vast that retaliation would be impossible. Energy weapons lost power over long distances, but kinetic projectiles kept their energy until they hit something. Elder Trunkwise. Mordan's voice was barely a whisper. Could these weapons damage planets? Dr. Hayes looked at Admiral Blake, who nodded permission to continue. A full-power railgun shot from one of our larger platforms, properly targeted, could potentially cause tectonic disruption on a planetary scale. We've never tested this, of course, as we have no desire to harm inhabited worlds. The room fell silent except for the humming of life support systems. Outside the windows, the Bone Crusher was being towed away by Krillian rescue vessels, its massive hull still pierced by a perfect circular hole. Shardsinger Velthon's crystalline form was dim with shock. You've created weapons that can destroy ships, asteroids, and planets using nothing but metal and magnetism? We've created tools, Admiral Blake corrected. Whether they are used as weapons depends on the intentions of those who operate them. Humanity seeks peace and cooperation with all species. But we will defend ourselves if necessary. Council Prime. Zexthor looked around the room at his fellow representatives. Jake could see the calculation in the alien leader's eyes. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted dramatically, and everyone in the room knew it. Admiral Blake, Zexthor said finally, perhaps we should discuss the terms of human membership in the Galactic Council in more detail. It seems we may have underestimated your species' readiness to join our organization. War Chief Thokmar's shoulders slumped in defeat. His mighty warships, the backbone of Krillian power, were suddenly obsolete. One small human vessel had crippled his flagship with a single shot. How could his empire threaten anyone when humans could destroy Krillian fleets from across the galaxy? Jake looked at Lieutenant Lisa Carter, who was trying not to smile. They had come to the council as supplicants, hoping to be accepted into the galactic community. Instead, they had just proven that humanity didn't need the council's protection. The council needed protection from humanity. Emergency meetings began immediately after the demonstration ended. Throughout Harmony Prime, alien delegations gathered in private chambers, their voices filled with fear and uncertainty. The comfortable order of the galaxy had been shattered by a single tungsten rod traveling at impossible speed. In the Krillian embassy section, War Chief Thokmar paced back and forth like a caged animal. His military advisors sat around a metal table, their scaled faces grim. The holographic display in the center of the room showed the Bone Crusher, still being repaired by robotic crews. We must strike first, Thokmar growled, before these humans can bring their weapons to full readiness. We have 5,000 ships. They have maybe 100. If we attack now, we can crush them before they become a real threat. General Vexkol, his second-in-command, shook his massive head. You saw what one of their small ships did to our flagship. Even if we destroyed their entire fleet, how many of our vessels would survive? And you heard the human admiral. They have hundreds of defense platforms around their homeworld. Then we use planet killers, Thokmar snarled. We have weapons that can crack worlds. We destroy Earth before they can react. From how far away? Asked Admiral Korthun, the oldest Krillian in the room. You heard their scientist. They can strike targets from the edge of a star system. How close do we need to get to use our planet killers? Close enough for them to destroy our entire attack fleet before we fire a single shot. The room fell silent as the terrible mathematics sank in. The Krillian Empire had ruled through military might for thousands of years. But military might meant nothing when your enemy could destroy your ships from distances your weapons couldn't reach. In the crystal chambers of the Vexhi delegation, Shardsinger Velthon resonated with fear harmonics. The living crystal beings communicated through light and sound, and right now their entire section was filled with the discordant music of panic. Science curator Nalthek pulsed with calculations. I have run the numbers 17 different ways. There is no defense against kinetic projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed. Our energy shields are useless. Our armor plating might as well be paper. What about our orbital fortresses? Asked Warsinger Kethvor. Surely, our massive defensive stations can withstand these railgun attacks. A railgun projectile at 25% light speed carries approximately 600 times more kinetic energy than our most powerful plasma cannons, Naltek replied. Our fortresses would be destroyed as easily as that Krillian ship. The Zephyrian delegation floated in their water-filled chambers, tentacles writhing with agitation. Tentacle Lord Vashka's bioluminescent patches flickered rapidly as he communicated with his advisors. The humans have made our entire military doctrine obsolete overnight. He pulsed in the flashing language of his people. For 3,000 years, we have perfected energy weapons and defensive systems. Now we learn that throwing rocks at high speed is more effective than anything we have ever built. Fleet Commander Shelthy's tentacles twisted into knots of worry. What terrifies me most is how simple their weapon appears to be. No exotic materials, no complex power systems, just electricity and magnetism. If humans can build these weapons so easily, why didn't we think of it first? Because we became too sophisticated for our own good, Vashka replied. We assumed that more complex meant more powerful. The humans proved that sometimes the oldest solutions are the best solutions. Meanwhile, in the human quarters aboard, Harmony Prime, Admiral Blake sat with her small delegation, carefully planning their next moves. The demonstration had worked better than they had hoped, but now they needed to be very careful about how they used their new position of strength. The aliens are scared, Captain Ryan Woods said over the secure communication link from the USS Liberty. My sensors are picking up increased military chatter from every species fleet. They're all trying to figure out how to deal with us. Good, Admiral Blake replied. Fear will make them reasonable, but we need to be careful not to push them into desperation. Desperate people do stupid things and we don't want a galaxy-wide war. Dr. Patricia Hayes looked up from her datapad. I've been monitoring their scientific communications. Every species is frantically trying to develop countermeasures to railgun technology. The problem is, there aren't any effective countermeasures against kinetic weapons at these speeds. Jake Morrison had been quiet during the discussion, but now he spoke up. Admiral, what's our real plan here? We can't conquer the entire galaxy with 100 ships, no matter how good our weapons are. We don't need to conquer anyone, Jake, Admiral Blake replied. We just need to make sure no one tries to conquer us. The best way to avoid war is to make war too expensive for your enemies to consider. Lieutenant Lisa Carter pulled up a chart on her tablet. The alien territories surround human space on all sides. If they wanted to, they could cut off our supply lines and isolate our colonies. They could have done that yesterday, Admiral Blake pointed out. But they won't try it now. Every alien leader is doing the same calculation. How many ships would they lose trying to attack us? The answer is too many to make it worthwhile. The communication console chimed, and Council Prime Zexthor's voice came through the speakers. Admiral Blake, the Council requests your presence for emergency consultations. We wish to discuss the details of human membership in our organization. Admiral, Blake smiled. Tell the Council we will be happy to attend. But this time, I think the discussion will be very different from yesterday. 3 hours later, the main Council chamber was packed with alien representatives, but the atmosphere had completely changed. Where yesterday there had been condescension and mockery, now there was careful respect mixed with barely hidden fear. Council Prime Zexthor stood at the center of the room, his 4 arms spread in a gesture of welcome. Admiral Blake, we have reconsidered humanity's application for Council membership. After your impressive demonstration, we believe Earth deserves immediate acceptance into our organization. Not just acceptance, added Elder Trunkwise Mordan, quickly. We propose granting humanity Tier 1 status, with all the rights and privileges of a major galactic power. Admiral Blake remained seated, projecting calm confidence. We appreciate the Council's reconsideration. However, we would like to discuss the terms of membership in detail. Earth has certain requirements that must be met. War Chief Thokmar's voice was strained. What requirements? First, we need exclusive mining rights to 3 star systems near human space. Our growing colonies require resources, and we want to avoid territorial disputes. Second, we need technology transfers from all Council species to help integrate our systems with galactic standards. The aliens looked at each other nervously. Yesterday, they had been planning to divide human territory among themselves. Now the humans were demanding territory and technology from them. Most importantly, Admiral Blake continued, we need guarantees that human space will remain inviolate. Any species that attacks human colonies or threatens human ships will be considered an enemy of Earth. Shardsinger Velthon's crystal form was dim with resignation. And if we agree to these terms, what does humanity offer in return? Admiral, Blake's smile was sharp but not unkind. Peace. Humanity seeks no conquests, no empire building, no domination of other species. We simply want to live safely among the stars and trade freely with our neighbors. As long as no one threatens us, our weapons will remain in their holsters. The unspoken message was clear to everyone in the room. Humanity had the power to dominate the galaxy if they chose to use it. The fact that they were offering peace instead of conquest was a gift the aliens couldn't refuse. Council Prime Zexthor looked around the room at his fellow representatives. One by one, they nodded their agreement. They had no choice. The Council accepts your terms, Admiral Blake. Welcome to the galactic community. 1 week after the demonstration that changed everything, the Galactic Council met for the final vote on human membership. The Great Chamber aboard Harmony Prime looked exactly the same as before, but everything else had changed completely. Jake. Morrison sat in his chair and watched the alien representatives file into the room. These were the same beings who had mocked humanity just days ago, calling humans too primitive and weak to join their organization. Now they avoided looking directly at the human delegation, their eyes filled with a mixture of respect and fear. Admiral, Susan Blake sat calmly at the human table, reviewing the treaty documents on her tablet. The terms were more favorable than anything Earth had dared to hope for when this process began. 3 star systems with exclusive human mining rights, technology, transfers that would advance human science by centuries, and most importantly, a guarantee that no Council species would threaten human territory. Council Prime Zexthor called the session to order, his 4 arms raised for attention. We are gathered today to vote on Resolution 3847, granting the human species full membership in the Galactic Council with Tier 1 status. War Chief Thokmar was the first to vote. The massive Krillian warrior looked older than his years, his shoulders bent with the weight of his empire's new reality. The Krillian Empire votes to accept the human application. His voice carried no enthusiasm, but Jake could see the calculation behind the words. The Krillians had been the galaxy's primary military force for 3,000 years. Now their fleets were obsolete, their bio-armor useless against kinetic weapons. Better to have humans as allies than enemies. Shardsinger Velthon's crystal form sparkled as she spoke. The Vex-High Consortium votes to accept humanity's membership and requests immediate negotiations for a defensive pact with Earth. Jake tried not to smile. A week ago, the Vex-High had questioned whether humans were smart enough to handle advanced technology. Now they wanted human protection. One by one, every species voted to accept humanity into the Council. The Zephyrians, who had suggested humans might be useful as servants, now offered trade agreements. The Borvians, who had worried about human defensive capabilities, now requested joint military exercises. Even the minor species who had barely spoken before were eager to establish friendly relations with Earth. The vote was unanimous. Not a single species voted against human membership. Admiral Blake stood to address the Council. On behalf of humanity, I accept your offer of membership. Earth looks forward to peaceful cooperation with all species represented here today. But Jake could see the subtle message in her posture and tone. Humanity was joining the Council not as junior members seeking protection, but as equals who could defend themselves. The balance of power had shifted permanently. After the formal ceremonies ended, Admiral Blake met privately with several alien leaders. The conversations were very different from the hostile reception humans had received a week earlier. Elder Trunkwise Mordan approached Admiral Blake with obvious nervousness. "Admiral, the Borvian Republic would like to discuss establishing trade routes through human space. Our merchant convoys could benefit from the protection of your orbital defense platforms." "Of course," Admiral Blake replied. "Earth believes in free trade and safe passage for all peaceful vessels." The elephant-like alien's trunk swayed with relief. "We also have information about pirate groups operating near the border regions. Perhaps we could coordinate our patrol schedules?" Jake realized what was happening. The Borvians weren't offering to help Earth fight pirates. They were asking Earth to help them. Species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were now seeking human military assistance. Tentacle Lord Vashka floated up in his water tank, his bioluminescent patches flashing diplomatic messages. "The Zephyrian Collective has been developing new shield technologies. We would be honored to share this research with human scientists in exchange for technical consultations on defensive systems." Dr. Patricia Hayes, who had been listening to these conversations, stepped forward. "We would be happy to review your research, Lord Vashka. Perhaps our engineers could suggest some improvements." The Zephyrian's tentacles writhed with gratitude. Jake shook his head in amazement. These were the same aliens who had laughed at human primitive technology. Now they were begging for human help with their own designs. 3 months later, Jake found himself aboard the USS Liberty as part of humanity's first interstellar patrol fleet. Captain Ryan Woods had been promoted to admiral and now commanded a squadron of 12 human vessels tasked with protecting the trade routes in Sector 7. The bridge of the Liberty had been upgraded with alien technology provided by Grateful Council species. Vex high crystal displays showed real-time information from across the galaxy. Borvian communication systems allowed instant contact with human colonies light years away. Zephyrian sensor arrays could detect threats at impossible distances. But the most important addition was the upgraded railgun system running along the ship's spine. The new design could achieve projectile velocities of 30% light speed, making it the most powerful weapon in known space. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the sensor station, "we're detecting a Krillian battle group approaching the human colony at New Dallas. They're still outside our territory, but they're moving toward the border." Woods looked at the tactical display. "How many ships?" 12 heavy cruisers and 4 dreadnoughts, sir. It's a significant force. 6 months ago, such a fleet would have been an existential threat to any human colony. Now it was merely an annoyance. "Open a channel to the Krillian commander," Woods ordered. The main screen showed the scarred face of a Krillian captain. His name was Cormac, and Jake could see the fear in his reptilian eyes. "Human vessels. This is Captain Cormac of the Krillian fleet. We are conducting routine patrol operations in this sector. Captain Cormac, this is Admiral Woods of the Human Patrol Fleet. You are approaching the border of human territory. Please state your intentions." The Krillian's throat worked nervously. We have no hostile intentions, Admiral. We are simply passing through this region on our way to investigate pirate activity near the Vortex Nebula." Woods smiled. "I see. Well, Captain, I'm sure you understand that we need to verify the safety of our colony. Would you mind if we escorted your fleet through this sector?" It wasn't really a request, and everyone involved knew it. The Krillian fleet was powerful, but the USS Liberty alone could destroy every ship in their formation before they could return fire. "Of course, Admiral," Cormac replied quickly. "We would welcome a human escort." Jake watched the tactical display as the Krillian ships changed course, giving New Dallas a respectfully wide berth. The most aggressive military force in the galaxy was now being polite and careful around human territories. Later that day, as the Liberty patrolled the outer edge of the New Dallas system, Jake stood in the observation lounge looking out at the stars. Lieutenant Lisa Carter joined him at the viewing window. "Hard to believe, isn't it?" she said. 6 months ago, we were begging for a chance to join the galactic community. Now the entire galaxy is afraid of us." Jake nodded. "Think we're doing the right thing? Using fear to keep the peace?" Lisa was quiet for a moment. Admiral Blake says the best way to avoid war is to make war too expensive for anyone to consider. Look at what we've accomplished without firing a shot in anger. Trade is flourishing. Piracy has almost stopped in human sectors, and even the Krillians are behaving themselves. Through the observation window, they could see the construction lights of humanity's newest project. Deep Space Station Alpha was being built in the asteroid belt of the new Dallas system. When complete, it would be the largest human installation outside of the Sol system, armed with the most powerful railgun batteries ever constructed. The station's weapons could theoretically strike targets anywhere in the local galactic arm. No species would be able to threaten human colonies without risking devastating retaliation from ranges they couldn't match. The galaxy is learning to respect us, Jake said finally. But is respect based on fear really what we want? Lisa pointed to the merchant ships in the distance, vessels from a dozen different species trading peacefully in human space. Look at them, Jake. Krillians trading with Vex High, Zephyrians working with Borvians. Species that have been enemies for thousands of years are now cooperating because they're all more afraid of us than they are of each other. Jake had to admit she had a point. The threat of human intervention was forcing the galaxy's aggressive species to find peaceful solutions to their conflicts. Wars that had been going on for centuries were ending because no one wanted to risk drawing human attention. Admiral Woods' voice came over the ship's communication system. All hands. This is the Admiral. We have received word from Earth that construction has begun on humanity's second deep space fortress. The facility will be located in the Centauri sector and will be fully operational within 18 months. Jake smiled as he imagined the alien reaction to this news. Another human fortress meant another region of space under human protection. More trade routes secured, more conflicts prevented, more peace maintained through the simple threat of tungsten rods traveling at impossible speeds.